Hey guys, it's Philip, and I wanted to welcome you to this episode of the Everyday Fighter podcast. Today, we're going to be speaking with Mark Goblowsky. Mark is a husband, father, business owner. In fact, he owns a martial arts academy in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, a little backstory. Mark and I met through an online mastermind. So we jump on calls, with a bunch of other folks together. We post in our mastermind forum. So we've known each other in that capacity for a few months. But I've got to tell you, in that short time, Mark has become a bit of a Yoda figure to me. He doesn't post much. He doesn't, even on our calls, he doesn't speak all that much. But I'll tell you, when he does, he always makes an impression on me. It's invariably insightful. It's deep. It shows a humility that I think only comes from a long time of learning, of struggle, and of just learning from those struggles. So this was a really special conversation I had. This is actually the first real long conversation one-on-one I'd had with Mark, and I'm looking forward to more. So we dive into a bit of his history with martial arts and his journey, his challenges, his struggles. I mean, he gets pretty deep in here, and he was very gracious with the stuff that he revealed, and ultimately getting to a bit of his philosophy in not just martial arts and the fight world, but also I think just in life. He's got a lot to offer. I'm looking forward to having him back. I'm ready to tell him, I got to have you back. We've got to talk about some other things because there's a lot that not only I, but I think we all can learn from Mark. In any case, this is Mark Goblowsky. Hope you enjoy it. I kind of wanted to talk about like you and where you came from in your journey in martial arts and elsewhere, and just kind of start from there. I'm sure we can just go everywhere.
Yeah. We'll go over wherever you want, Philip. Do you prefer Philip or Phil or something else?
Either one, man. Either one. My wife, she's the only one that calls me baby, but you can call me.
I'm probably not going to go there. At least not up, first.
We'll give it a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
So you're right now. You're in Omaha.
I am.
Did you grow up in that area, or?
I grew up near Cleveland, Ohio. Same town for first 20 years of my life. Joined the military. Ended up in California, then the Philippines, then Korea, then Omaha, and I got out here.
Okay. So, what was life like here? How did you? Just kind of, I want to learn a little bit more how you grew up, how you found martial arts. Was that something that came when you were very young, or did it come much later in life?
So you're getting some backstory before the interview?
No, we're talking right now, man.
We are recording.
Yeah, we're in, man. Dude. No, I was, so I typically I'll do like, I'll talk a little bit, but I was already feeling it, man. So I'm like, let me just bust in with Mark.
Perfect. Look, when I was a young kid, it was the 1960s. So like a long time, even before Bruce Lee was on the scene. And I grew up in a home that was violent, and I didn't like violence. I didn't like experiencing violence against me. Nobody does. And it was an arbitrary type of violence. It wasn't like a discipline type of, thing. It was literally, you didn't know. It was always disproportionate to the infraction. Right. And that can distort a person's mind and how they see the world. So my first inkling for self-defense is rooted in that. When I was about 12 years old, the Kung Fu series came out with Kwai Chang Caine, yes. Grasshopper, yes. Master Po, and the whole. And I watched the very first made-for-TV movie sitting on the floor on 5th Street in Fairport Harbor, Ohio, and I was absolutely taken away by it. Huh. That guy, he had this presence, and he was peaceful, but he was powerful. You know, he had the ability to protect himself, and he had the ability to help others. And through it all, he had this calmness about him and this confidence. And I was like, I don't have any of that. Like everything he's displaying that I see, I want in my life. Well, we were too poor, and it just wasn't going to play out that way. And eventually I got into the military. And at that point, I had the time and the money to study the martial arts. But I didn't have the confidence to like walk through the door and actually start training. So I had been a scrapper growing up, and had been in a number of fist fights over time. I had fought multiple opponents, and for some reason, I thought if I walked into a martial arts school, like everybody was going to absolutely crush me because they knew things I didn't know. Which that's not always the truth. You know what I mean? That's not always a reflection of reality, because sometimes us in the martial arts, we live in a little bit of a fantasy world with some of our training, if we're honest. So I went to school after school, and I would tell the instructor, okay, I'll be back tomorrow. And then I would never come back and sign up because I was just scared. That was it. I was just scared. Eventually I find myself in the Philippines and had some friends there, and we kind of toyed around a little bit here and there, but I didn't take any classes. And when I got to Korea, there was a Kung Fu instructor off base, and a guy in my shop told me about him. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go down there. And I go off base, and I get to this place, and I'm standing in front of this door, and I'm thinking, I should just turn around now and leave. And it dawned on me at that point, like if I don't walk through that door, I'm going to be scared the rest of my life. I'll just be scared the rest of my life, and I'll never do something that is in my heart, like this desire to, whether it is go climb mountains or play chess or, it didn't matter, but like this desire that was in my heart to do martial arts. So I decided that whatever was on the other side of that door was less painful than me being afraid the rest of my life. So I reached out, turned that knob, walked into the unknown, and I started my martial arts training there in a Kung Fu school on top of a camera shop in downtown Seongtan, Korea.
Wow. So how long were you there?
I was there for a full year's tour. Okay. And then when I left there, I wanted to continue my training. So I came back to the States and tried to bring my instructor over on a work visa. We're talking the late 80s, early 90s. And that got denied. Eventually, I got him over on a tourist visa, and he would bring some of his students over, and we kind of toured up and down the Midwest corridor, did demos up at Mount Rushmore, Boys Town here in Omaha, traveled to Houston for tournaments. And then he would just come over for a couple months at a whack. And I just continued my training for a number of years after that with him directly. And then, I had opened a school, so I was getting exposed to lots of other people around the country who did different arts, So yeah, I just kept my training going after I left Korea by bringing him here to me.
Now, I mean, that's pretty amazing. Like, you had such a relationship, and he made such an impression on you that you wanted to bring him over. I mean, what was that like? What was your relationship like that you were possessed to do that?
I had still such a need to be validated, as a man. I had, done contact sports. I'd been a scrapper. I joined the military. You know what I mean? I was trying to do all these things to prove to myself that I was a man. And that, again, goes back to my childhood and how I grew up. And so I wanted him to come over here so bad so I could continue my training, because I thought the martial arts would turn me into a man and I would be able to live without fear anymore. Now I'm already in my second half of my 20s when I got him here. And I was under some delusions that continuing to have this teacher, I was kind of looking for the Master Po or the Mr. Miyagi, this guy who was going to impart wisdom to me, not just about how to deal with a violent altercation, but like how to live my life. And it was kind of a double-edged sword, because he had a different goal in mind. His goal was to get here and open up a bunch of kung fu schools and make a ton of money, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But over time, my school, I started to get some guidance from other school owners, and my school grew far beyond anything he had. He had, I don't know, 10 schools in Korea, and my one school was bigger than all of his schools put together. And I think there was some, I don't know, jealousy or something. And I tried to support him through it all. At any rate, it was great having him here, but there were these other agendas around money. And I kind of felt like I couldn't completely support him on it. And there was, I don't want to badmouth him because he's human. It's like, I've made mistakes. I'm human. I've made bad choices. I've been self-centered, whatever. But I really thought that having him here would continue to change my life in a super positive way. And he was he still is an amazing martial artist. He's still in Korea. He's doing some other stuff besides martial arts now. But you hear the stories of, people fighting blindfolded. Like he could do that. I'm not exaggerating. I saw him do it.
Yeah.
I saw him do it in Korea. He did it in my school here, in Omaha, and he could do it. And it was terrifying. Like you could see the guys who would get in there. And these weren't new students. These are guys that had been with him for, 10 years. They were highly advanced martial artists. And he could put a blindfold on, mark off his space, and you weren't going to get him.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he had crazy skills.
So you eventually you make a break with him.
He actually left me.
He left you. Okay.
Yeah, I did not want to separate, but
okay.
He had some other agendas.
So what was that like for you? Because ultimately you brought him over to help validate you, right? Now the validation is gone. What happens there?
At the risk of sounding like a weenie of some sort, like it was crushing. It was crushing. I had devoted a number of years, lots of resources. There were all kinds of guys who were in the service who had studied with him, and nobody brought him over. I was the guy who did it. I was the one who went further than anybody. And I felt like hurt because of the direction that it took. There was other people involved, other Americans who kind of wanted him. You know what I mean? They want, how it is. You get to school and some people want to kind of be the top dog. And there's a bunch of us who just want to train. Yeah. But some people feel a different need for a different type of validation. And if I'm the closest to the master, then, I feel more important. So there was some of that going on with another guy here in the States. But it was honestly, it was crushing to me for a long time, years, because I couldn't understand it, being kicked to the curb like that.
Well, you had already had a school for a bit at the time already, right? For a few years?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I had just opened my second school.
Second school.
Yeah, so, I had 600 in my primary school, and then I had just opened a second location.
And was he pretty well involved in your schools up to that point?
No, normally I'd have him come over for, say, 2 to 3 months at a time, once or twice a year. So that had been going on for several years. And the goal was still to get him there. It's just that it wasn't possible with immigrations at the time. I probably should have gone and gotten an immigration lawyer. I put the package together myself, maybe with a guy who knows the ropes. It might have happened, but the goal was still to have him come, and the goal was still for him to lead the organization.
So he left. Now, how was that for you, particularly with your relationship with your schools and your students at that point?
Yeah, I felt like an orphan, and this is so crazy, but I almost immediately felt delegitimized. Like I no longer had the authority to lead my students. And, and it's all crazy because I still had the same skill sets. I still had, him certifying me as an instructor, him promoting me, but it didn't matter.
So what did you do? I mean, it's just like, let's turn that bit of me off while I just keep on going. And and then, because I know, it's, for me, I've had those experiences where it really is. The confidence is not there, yet you still got to step up. I mean, how do you do that? How did you do that then?
Well, I kept showing up. You just keep showing up. You don't change the things that you're doing on a daily basis because of some external factor that changed. However, the inner landscape was where the battle was for me. It was the internal battle, the battle in my mind and my soul, where, you feel this conflict and you literally feel like an orphan. Like, where's my dad? And we're talking about full grown men here. And at this point, I'm in my 30s and I still felt like an orphaned kid. But I kept showing up to school, kept showing up to staff meetings, kept showing up to teach classes. And, but it probably took me 15 years to get over it. And it's not like I was bitter towards him. It was just this sense of kind of feeling lost, like your dad's gone or something, and kind of felt like a kid on the inside, to be honest.
Yeah. So how do did that rear its head at the time when you? I can imagine that you had so many students, so I'm sure some of them very, very close to you, having their own similar type struggles.
I actually had a few students who came to the point where they're like, well, since your master left you, then are you really legitimate anymore?
Like to your face?
Yeah. I had a couple students walk. When you have hundreds of students, there's going to be a percentage that's going to lean in any given direction at any time. Love you, hate you, frustrated, whatever. And there was just, I could count on one hand. It might have been 2 or 3 at the most. But again, when you're hearing that feedback, unless your mindset is so solid in that moment, you kind of question, you kind of doubt. I'd challenge that everybody's questioning themselves from time to time and having some internal doubt. And that's kind of the human experience. We're here specifically to learn how to overcome those mental and emotional challenges, because really if somebody, like my son has had he had a brain injury. And while he's overcoming the physical, it's really the mental and emotional challenges that he is battling with the most. It's always mindsets and heart sets. And until those things are so solid that you don't waver too much when a big wave hits you, It's being tested all the time. And the funny thing is it's the more your mindset grows, then there's going to be something else higher level that's going to test it later. Like your foundation is solid, but there's going to be something a little more advanced that's going to test you mentally and emotionally to see if you're resilient, if you really mean what you say by persevering through the challenge and overcoming it. And I didn't really want to let my students down. But that being said, that struggle inside was real for me.
So like in those instances where you were challenged by your students in terms of your legitimacy, I mean, what'd you do?
Well, I said,
I challenge you outside.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that kind of challenge. It wasn't that kind of challenge, but, and I wouldn't have taken them up on it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
anyhow.
Absolutely.
I brought it back to them and I said, are your martial arts skills any different today than they were before you heard this information? And they're like, no. And I said, well, then I would say that I've been a good instructor and I have taught you well. And regardless of what anybody else says about me, those skills that you have, they're yours forever. So, the proof is in the pudding of their own performance.
What do you do when, and I guess maybe it's just a matter of, having the experience of showing up so much. But I know when I get a student, and then for one reason or another, we just don't hear from them anymore. For me, it's sad. It's a sad thing, because it's particularly now there are the ones that it's just not for them. They're not getting it. They gave it a shot, and it's they're trying on new clothes. Oh, this doesn't fit properly, right? But there are the ones that like, oh wow, this is, and then it fizzles or something happens. Life happens or such. But sometimes other people just fall off. I still haven't gotten kind of used to it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a matter of like showing up more often like you have for the past 30, 45 years. But
I had a guy who was a jiu-jitsu guy. He's a young guy in his 20s. He was here for a while, and he came in and he started studying. And this was a couple years ago, and I'm just doing, I don't know if it's an empty hand form or a weapons form. Maybe it was a spear form, something. I'm doing something, and I get done, and he says, How do you get so good at something? Okay. I mean, we all look at our teachers and we watch them do a kata or spar and we're like, oh my God, you see that kick or whatever. And I says, devote 25 years to it. There's simple. No magic formula. It just keeps showing up.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So as far as the students and feeling a little bit of a hole in you when they're gone, like I get that. Because you've devoted a lot of energy and time to them. There's a unique relationship there. And, as you said earlier, your instructor's up there sharing personal stories about themselves to teach some sort of lesson. And, when we let people into our lives like that, it's a little bit more of an intimate relationship. You know what I mean? It's a more intimate conversation when I share with you how I really feel and what I've really experienced in my life. And we feel closer because of that intimacy or those stories that you're not just sharing with everybody.
Yeah.
So you devoted a lot, you poured a lot into them, and it's understandable that you might feel a sense of loss. At the same time, their journey might not require them to be with us any longer. And they might not be able to grow or go in the direction they need to if they stayed with us any longer. There's no understanding it because we don't get to see the whole picture.
Right.
Like we're looking through a pinhole and that's all we get to see. And if you're looking at all of our lives from above, then you see how much more complicated it is.
Yeah.
And it's not just about me and you, or me and this student or you and that student. So I've had, in 30 years, I've had the opportunity for a lot of people to be gone. Okay. Now, there's a guy in the room next door, two guys. One of them's been with me for 25 years. The other one started with me on May 1st, 1989. Okay. He's been coming here every week since 1989, which is awesome. But there's so many more that have left. A couple weeks ago, I got a message from an old student who'd left. She wasn't just a student, she was a staff member eventually. And her time with me, she started as a kid. Then when she got into her teen years, stopped. She was active in high school. When she got done with high school, she came back all the way through college and worked for me. And I get a Facebook message from her. I haven't talked to her in a number of years. She was in the Air Force, an Air Force officer. And I get a message and she says, I've been thinking about you a lot and my time at the school. And I just want to apologize for all the hell I created towards the end of my time there. So
now, was that true? Did she cause a bit of a hell for you?
It's probably, she was a really good girl and she was a really good person. Yeah. So her idea of hell is, probably not mine, mine or your idea of hell.
Right.
But it was difficult and it was difficult of her choosing and that's okay. It was just so surprising. See, you don't know what's going on in a person's mind, not when they leave and not when they come back. Over the years, I've gotten, a letter or two when somebody's left and, like I am the spawn of Satan and I am such a miserable human being and yada, yada, yada. 10 years later, I get another note from them apologizing for what they said when they left. They were going through a divorce. They were going through a career change, whatever. And so we never really know what people are experiencing. And sometimes the reason they leave is the reason they tell us is not the complete reason that they're leaving. There's just stuff going on in their life. And they hit the eject button on a few things, and one of them happened to be us.
Is that approach something that, like, where did you get that? Because you've already mentioned you had a fairly rough upbringing, right, and you had this lack of confidence, even going through the military and traveling. I don't know if there was a time or a place you pinpoint, but, when did that start showing up for you?
What do you mean? What's showing up? Exactly?
This is what you just talked about in terms of everyone's got their own thing going. Yeah. Instead of scrapping, oh man, he's probably got some challenges now. That empathy, that ability to step back and just see, because martial arts or not, that's a challenge, and it's. I think for me, I could say that, like, for I don't know, maybe for somebody that's new and they're hitting a lot harder, I can empathize. Hey, listen, they really don't know. They're still kind of finding their own strength or that type of thing. Might be a little bit more difficult for me to apply that outside. Right. And particularly for the things that you mentioned. If someone wrote a letter to me, we're living in an age of just horrible, just YouTube comments. I'm sure you've had your share as well.
It's so unkind out there. Like, literally, there's really no better word. There's just a general lack of kindness. I think that honestly represents the high level of pain and disconnection that we have in the world today. And, as much as social media and the internet has lots of positive benefits, it really doesn't. I don't know that it completely is helping with connection. Like, it's easy to kind of be a friend of somebody on Facebook and like their thing or whatever. But, kind of my measuring stick for friendship or for compassion is, are you willing to dig in your pocket and grab a $20 bill? Like, you could tell me you care. You could tell me you care about starving people. You could tell me you care about drug addicts and the homeless. But until you dig in your pocket and grab a $20 bill, and help somebody, or you are donating time, those are just words. And I don't know you by your words. I know you by your deeds, as people know me by my deeds and make their decisions based on those as well. And my deeds have not always been perfect, you know? So as far as coming to a point of empathy or understanding, I think the way I grew up, when I put enough space between it in time, as well as in physical distance, you can look at it from a different perspective. And I went on a search early on in my life, once I got out of where I was growing up, I went on a search for understanding. Like I said, when I see some guy on a television set and I'm 12 years old and this guy can treat anybody with compassion, he can be empathetic to any, he gets it. I was, that was such a powerful draw for me, that I went and I tried to learn how to become more empathetic. Now, there's been times where I've lost my crap, flipped out for lack of a better word. But I think if we don't start with some kindness, compassion, and empathy, we have no chance of really building a better life for ourselves or others. Like, you really have to, I call it getting on the other side of the wall. So if I'm standing on one side of the wall, and it's 10 foot tall and 100 feet wide, and you're on the other side and you're going, and we're having an argument, and I'm going, this wall is gray and it's cold and hard, it's concrete, and I'm standing on gravel. And you're going, no, it isn't. This wall is bamboo and I'm standing on grass. And we're arguing over it. We know it's the same wall, but the problem is if I walk around, I actually see, wait a minute, his side of the wall is bamboo, it is grass. And if you were to walk over on my side of the wall, you would see that it's gray, cinder block, whatever. But unless one of us takes the action to go and look, you know what I mean? We are just locked in place, and all we're going to do is argue and fight. And it doesn't matter whether it's on a martial arts mat or around the kitchen table or in the office at work, until one of us walks over to the other side of the wall and goes, oh, I see what you're talking about. It is different than what I see. Then we have a chance of maybe making some progress. Doesn't mean I have to capitulate. Me walking on your side of the wall does not mean I'm going to give up what I am trying to accomplish. It just lets me see things from your perspective. And I think when we start to see things a little bit better, more honestly from another person's perspective, it's easier to have empathy, be more patient. And, I've never known anybody to excel in, I've never known the common person to excel in the martial arts with a whip at their back. Like it's that teacher, that Mr. Miyagi kind of guy who's firm but patient. He's stern, but he's also understanding of your limitations, and he applies his firmness and his compassion at the right points. It's not distorted in general. So that's kind of it for me. I've worked at it. I've tried to work at it.
Now, it's absolutely work to get to that point, particularly with other folks and other folks that present you very challenging situations, right?
Absolutely.
Completely different, I'd say. Or just to get a different beast from the same source when you apply it to yourself, right? In terms of compassion, patience, granting yourself grace. What is that like for you?
That's been way harder. I think in general, most of us are way harder on ourselves than we ever would be on anybody else. I was finishing up, I finished up the first draft of my book just this morning, and there was a part of it that I finished writing today speaking to that. Like, I use language with my internal dialogue when I'm talking, that dialogue in your head. Yeah. Like it's brutal. It is so brutal with myself sometimes. Now I've gotten better at it. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine pointed out to me, he says, Mark, do you ever listen to yourself? Like when you talk about yourself, do you ever listen to the language you use? You are so harsh with yourself. Now, other people have said that over the years, but they didn't say it quite like that. It might be, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah. But this guy asked me a question. You know, when we ask people questions, a lot of times we have to pause and we have to think about the question. And then if you're being thoughtful, you're going to think it through and give an answer. And for me, that was a real wake-up call. You know, here I was, I wanted to be a great teacher, you know, kind of that Master Po, Mr. Miyagi, grasshopper guy. And yet I was brutal with myself. And I've come to the conclusion that you're only going to go so far until you actually learn to love yourself. Like you have to learn to apply that grace, that compassion, that understanding, that patience to you, just as you might do for anybody else. And I know not everybody's patient with other people. You've probably had more than one martial arts instructor that may have showed you the technique 3 times and said, okay, do it. That was kind of my instructor. He literally would show me 3 times. Then the question would be, do you understand? The appropriate answer was yes, sir. And then you're kind of left to your devices, racking your brain going, I really don't understand this.
Yeah.
And then you start practicing and then, you might try a follow-up question, but we really have to learn to be kind to ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to have to will ourselves forward to be kind and compassionate with other people because we kind of run out of gas. And so then it's just willpower. You can't exceed for very long to treat other people better than you're willing to treat yourself. Whoa. You can try and you might even be successful, but you're going to run out of gas because you no longer have capacity. You're going to outreach it. And until you find more capacity, which means that treating yourself that way first so that you can better serve others, you're just going to run out of steam.
How do you do that? Because there's a difference, right? If I say, I kind of like setting a goal for myself, right? And maybe I didn't hit it. Oh, it's okay. You did your best, you got 80% of the way there. It's different though. Say, having, granting myself a little bit of grace there than kind of this self-talk of like, oh, man, you really fell short. You need it. I mean, and that's that phraseology there is very kind.
Right. That's not what we're really
That's not what we really say. It'll be cleaned up over here. But
yeah, there's F-bombs and there's all kinds of expletives and derogatory names directed straight at me.
So it's not so much like steps. It's more of it's that emotional. It's like value, right? Like your self-worth.
When my son was born, and I never wanted to be a dad. I thought when I died, there should be no evidence that I was ever here. Like that's how negative I saw my own being. And I grew up acquiring.
There shouldn't be or there wouldn't be any evidence that
both.
You were here.
There shouldn't be. And I had tried. Look, my son was born when I was 41. There was ample opportunity to have a child in the previous 20 years. And I didn't think it was going to happen then. I thought things were in play that couldn't allow it to happen. But, thank God it did. But when my son was born and I looked at him and I could see that my DNA was not black, like my essence was not polluted, and that something good could come from my the physical part of me, that became a mirror for me to look at him and go, oh my God, I'm not this other person that I think I am. This negative, this person who doesn't deserve to procreate even. I mean, you can go into the worst, the most impoverished areas of the country and people procreate. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I just could not imagine there was anything of value within my being. But my son became a mirror for me to see that's not true. And I committed to be a great dad, as good a dad as I possibly could for him. And I worked super hard at it. But to get a glimpse of the truth, like the bigger picture of who you are or who I am, and just see a glimpse of it, you can start to explore the possibility of maybe I've been told a lie. Maybe I've been told a lie about myself or about how the world works or how I should see myself. And, I'm not here to blame my parents and that, that's not my point. But the point is our minds are fertile ground. It's like a garden, and everything that you think is being planted inside your mind, and everything that other people say or do that you allow in your mind, those things have the opportunity to grow. And if you get too many weeds, guess what? Your mind just becomes like this field of weeds. It's no longer a field of dreams or a beautiful lawn or garden. It's just like polluted. Seeing my son changed all that for me. It let a little bit of light inside my mind. And then I was able to start to treat myself a little bit differently. And then a couple of years ago, when my friend, literally pointed out how I was still talking about myself or in reference to myself, those were real wake-up calls. And there were plenty of people, just like in your life, there's probably been plenty of people who have told you, Philip, you're so talented. Philip, you have a gift for this, or you have a gift for that. Philip, oh my gosh, you're this and you're that and you're this. And they're all glowing positive things. But somehow our minds latch on to the negative, and it doesn't let the positive grow. But you've been told you're smart or hardworking or whatever, for a good part of your life, as we all have. But our minds tend to not favor that. We take these more emotionally charged experiences that were negative, and then we hold on to them. We got to give ourselves permission to see a different future.
As you're saying that, I mean, absolutely, that's true. I've been told a lot of those types of things, and I think part of me it downplay it because maybe it's the environment where it's like, oh well, it's not a good idea to shine out too much. Boast about your accomplishments or what you're good at, or because you don't want to make other people feel bad, right? And then another part of me, I think, this might be more so, it's depending on what they had said, is it's more internal of like, what if it is true? What they said, that I am that great at that, and to a degree, that's a bit or a lot scarier. It almost feels like a responsibility at that point, right?
I'm going to butcher this quote a little bit, but hopefully you can get the gist of it. That Marianne Williamson wrote A Course in Miracles, and there's a famous quote of hers that goes something like this: "Our fear isn't that we are inadequate. Our fear is that we are incredible beyond measure." Like what you just pointed out is a lot of us are afraid of fully actualizing ourselves and coming into this place where we take our gifts and we develop them and we cultivate them and we nourish them and we feed them, and they just become way bigger than what we ever imagined in a positive way, serving the world, I would argue. If we step back and we look at, this hesitation to jump into that arena. Okay. If we look at the fact that, what if that's possible? And let's eliminate the boasting part of it that you just said. Okay. Let's just say that you feed and you nourish your gifts and you share your gifts freely, economically, so you can live with the world. Aren't you actually doing humanity a greater service by doing that than by shrinking back and teaching other people to shrink back at the same time?
Wow. So that one hits more for me. Because I think in terms of like duty to, help, just for you to, for me to show the world, it's a different feel than if I'm taking away from somebody.
Yeah.
And me not doing it is like, no, but I mean, like, me not stepping up into, who I really am, right, is actually diminishing other people.
You are taking it away from them because they're not seeing your powerful example of standing in who you are and you pursuing your life in alignment with who you really want to be. It's a great disservice to the world if we don't. I want to be a good writer. It's actually a disservice to the world if I don't write. I want to be a good martial artist or a good communicator, teacher. It's a disservice if I don't do that. It's the world changes more by us feeding that part of our lives than it does by starving it. Like, everybody benefits from Philip building out his dreams. Everybody who works with you, everybody who comes in contact with you, your kids, your extended family. Now, that's not to say everybody's going to be happy with your choices. And sometimes our families are the least happy. Like, they want us to be happy, but they don't want us to change to be happy.
There's specific rules that we need to play within in order to get that happiness.
Yeah. You can be happy as long as you play by my rules and don't step too far away. And and that's not to bash our families. We all bring a certain level of understanding to the world. And if I'm still thinking the way I was 10 years ago, there's probably something wrong. I haven't grown. I tell my students that, as I've aged, I'm slower. I'm not as fast as I was 20 years ago. There's no way. I'm heading towards 60. There's no way. But that doesn't mean that I can't grow as a human being. I can't grow in more wisdom that I can share or compassion that I can share. I have the opportunity to continue to grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually till the moment I die. The physical, there's a peak for all of us. And sometimes that's tough to contend with because, your body fat was 8%. Now it's 18%, headed towards 28 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that. And you used to be twice as fast and now you're twice as slow. And, every joint in your body feels different. That's going to happen to all of us. I don't care who's out there. Like, you could still be 60 and be in great shape, but you are not going to be as fast as you were when you're 40. But you can be more loving. You can be more generous. You can be more helpful. You can help that 20-year-old become an awesome 40-year-old.
I think, there's a couple of things that you're talking about as well in terms of your own growth. I mean, when you're talking about getting your own validation, that took 15 years for you. Getting to the point where you were, being able, starting to tackle your self-talk, the negative self-talk. It's 12 years. I think for a lot of people, that's a hard pill to swallow, especially today, when we're looking for the next book. When I'm done with this book, I'll have the keys, and damn it, because I'm more advanced than other readers, I'm gonna have it taken care of as well. It's not just I'm going to get the knowledge. It's going to be in me. I'm going to be living it by the end of this book or by the end of this YouTube video. As long as the YouTube video is less than 20 minutes, 6 weeks till
Don't ask me to have to work too hard.
Is that what it is?
Well, I think that's our
is
nature.
it people are just afraid of hard work now? Is it?
I don't think it's necessarily afraid of hard work. I think it's a human condition.
You
know,
want things to be easier.
Easy.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're lying to me if you're telling me that you want it difficult and challenge all the time. I get it that, literally there are people who wake up every day and they're looking for a challenge. I get that. But even they are looking for an easy way somewhere. Like maybe I'm looking for a challenge physically. And so I decided to do triathlons, but I want my relationship at home to be a little easier. Right? Maybe I'm looking for a challenge at work, but I want my fitness to be a little bit easier. You know what I mean? It's like you can't be 100% of the time. Like there's a reason there's 4 seasons spread out over 365 days because life needs that. That's how it was designed. And we need that. We can't go 100% of the time.
I think it's probably where that grace for yourself really helps. Is that right?
That's powerful. That's a game changer. You can give yourself some grace and you can put things in perspective and you can have some wisdom. Your life takes on a different kind of rhythm to it because you understand I can't go 100%. Like if I do that, I literally will burn out. I don't care what you're doing. We need time to rest. We need time to recharge, which is not the same as resting all the time.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, resting. I have a good friend of mine years ago. He says, I don't need rest. I need results. Okay. And there's now this is a man who takes a nap every single day of his life.
Okay.
He's very wealthy.
Yes.
And he shoots a rack of billiards every day, and he listens to classical music and he has this rhythm to his life that he nurtures that actually has made him a high performer. Like a lot of the high performers I know, they're nappers. Like they take a nap every day, some 20 minutes, some 2 hours, but they found a rhythm of a way to recharge. And sometimes results actually charge us up, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
Like if I start nailing a round kick or I'm able to slip in a Kimura regularly or something, like it makes me want to do it more.
Yes.
And so that charges us. But we also need, to recharge maybe through, active, semi-active things like meditation or taking a walk or going camping, whatever it is for you. Music, who knows?
That's interesting, though. It really is that distinction between it's not necessarily just rest, because rest is different. There's a different intent to that, where it's pretty much just as it just stops, right? You got the rest in there.
Yep.
The recharging inherently you're charging for something else. There's something that you're doing that for.
You're creating energy. For a battery to recharge, you plug it in the wall and it gets filled with energy. And that's what we need to do when we're recharging. So whatever works for us, but that's different than sleeping, especially as you get older. Sleeping doesn't recharge you the way it did when you were a little bit younger. I don't mean to paint a dark picture. I'm just, I'm just
Mark,
telling you.
My sleep is already crap. You're not giving me anything to look forward to. Well, man, this was Jesus Christ. We got to do this again.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you. I think this is going to be amazing for people that find their way to it. Just your insights, and I'm just looking forward to more, man. So
I hope it serves.
Yeah, let's end it here. Listen, in the meantime, where can people get more of you?
You can find me at my website, Mark, M-A-R-K, Goblowsky, GOBLOWSKY.com. You can find me on Facebook, Mark Goblowsky. And if you want to reach out, if there's anything I can help you with, just hit me up, any of you people that are listening, anytime.
Appreciate it, Mark.
You bet.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Mark Goblowsky. Man, every time I listen to that interview, and I have done it multiple times since we first recorded, there's always something new that I walk away with, or something I might have heard earlier that it just gets even deeper for me. So again, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you want more of Mark, please go to his website at markgoblowsky.com. You can check out the link in the show notes. That is it, guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.